and on DougPagittRadio.com. Hey, it's May 15th, and for those of you living in the Twin Cities, I have a little warning for you. If you were to go outside today, you would see something that maybe those ancestors of ours had talked about. That's a large burning ball in the sky. We haven't seen it in weeks around here, I think. It's been a while, but it's a beautiful day in the Twin Cities. And glad to have you aboard here at Doug Pagitt Radio. Our little weekly conversation of religious radio that's not quite right. Religious radio that's got a new attitude and spirit to it. I'd love to have your contributions to the show. You can do that over at the website. If you want to watch the show live, you can do that there and chat with other listeners around the world and maybe even on the space station. You can do that at DougPagittRadio.com. You can also call into the show anytime you like, 952-946-6205. You know, we often have this format of this show be a bit of a conversation. I have a sidekick that's on the show. I have a regular natural health coach that calls in. You can see that, maybe you can hear that I'm sort of losing my voice this week. But I have a natural health coach that's going to call in today. I have an author of a book called The Sword of the Lord, and talking about the rise of fundamentalism in his own family and how he has come to grips with that. So we normally have this conversation, but the sidekick is sick today. The sidekick finds himself under the weather. So Randon, the new guy, we've got to be covering without him.
Yeah, actually, we have our first caller already.
Oh, we do? Well, fantastic. Well, who do we have on the line there?
Hey, this is the sidekick.
Oh, it's the sidekick. Calling in sick today, are you?
Yes, I'm having a little bit of intestinal disturbance, speaking of large burning.
Well, I appreciate your calling in sick. Now, you do know that around here we don't have a separate sick day off, so we're going to have to dock your pay.
Really?
Really?
Okay.
Really?
We have an awful connection there.
Yeah, we do have an awful connection. Well, maybe not only is John sick, the sidekick, but maybe his phone line is sick as well.
It may well be.
I'm calling from a bathroom.
Yeah, are you calling from the bathroom on a speakerphone or something? Because that is great radio.
He can't reach the phone from where he's sitting. That's the problem.
Well, good things to you there, sidekick. We hope you're feeling better and that you're able to come back and join us sometime soon here on the program. So thanks for the diligence of calling in sick today. Well, Randon, it's just us. We can have all the fun we want without that pesky producer around. We can sort of do it any way we want.
That's right.
Hey, Brandon, how was your week?
I had a good week.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Now, what kind of things do you do midweek? We know that those of us who are part of the weekend programming around here at AM 950, the juggernaut that is progressive radio in Minnesota, we get to hear you on the weekend. What do you do the rest of the time?
Well, sometimes you also hear me on Wednesdays.
Oh,
that's my other day of the week that I come in. But when I'm not here, I'm usually hanging out with my son. Actually, this week I met with my father-in-law, who says that he knows you.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, Tim Kowalik from
well, how do you like that?
Wooddale.
Well, how do you like that?
Back in those days. Mm-hmm.
Boy. Well, look at see the connection that is this radio, this social networking that goes on. People knowing each other, have known each other for years. Well, fantastic. Well, around here we like to have conversations that include where we've been, where we're going. We're going to do some updates today on spirituality. I think it's actually going to be kind of interesting. Spirituality that that I think gives us a new lens at thinking about who we are as people in our spirituality. And also here after the break, two news articles that I think come together. One of them is that Minnesota was named the hippest town in the world. Did you know that? The most hipsters. Like, this is the hippest place for that kind of urban, mustache-wearing, Pabst Blue Ribbon drinking hipster. You know those types? Yeah. Apparently Minneapolis, hippest of them all. And then there's another article that I think might be informing that, or be informed by that, perhaps. And that is the vote on gay clergy from the Presbyterian Church. And I'm going to connect those two things together here after the break. But I'll tell you, I was in Canada this week. My first time ever being in Canada. Had never crossed the border officially. Had snuck over a little bit from the boundary waters, just went to the other side of the lake, but never crossed the border into Canada.
Not made land anyway.
Had not made land. Fantastic over there. I'll tell you. Some of us think down on the Canadians, eh? Sometimes growing up in Minneapolis, we tend to talk about Canada as a suburb of Minneapolis, but it's not. It's this whole other life up there. It's
really?
I was never treated so well. It was just these Canadians. They are understated, and they were fantastic. I was in the Calgary area, and we're up in Banff, Canada, and I do religious work, right? So I was up there talking to a bunch of clergy from the Anglican Church in the United States. We'd call them Episcopalians. But I was hanging around with the Anglicans, and awfully nice folks up there. But I'll tell you what, it was like a bunch of frat boys.
All of Canada?
Well, yeah, that's probably true. Okay. But those Anglicans in Canada, man, it felt like I was on a pledge week or something with them. Because see, once you have wine for communion, that just opens up the whole other door. So when your religious experience comes with a little bit of with a little wine, they are free drinkers. Those folks. So I was exhausted by the end of the week. I think that's why I lost my voice. I just think I can't drink like a Canadian Anglican. But we certainly had a great time, and the shuttle is taking off. We often say around here that that this broadcast is carried around the world, and maybe even listened to on the space station, because we found out, like the week that this show first launched on the station, that the internet is available on the space station. So we're quite confident that somehow they're listening in. So we like to send greetings to those folks. Well, the United States is about to send its second to last space shuttle trip up to the space station, and then we're out of the space station business. We're outsourcing it to other countries.
Well, that's the current plan.
Isn't that slightly disturbing?
It is.
That here the nation, that back when I was a kid, I was born in '66, so when I was a kid, we wanted to get to the moon before the Soviets. And now we're like, now why don't you just take over the space station?
Yeah,
we're
good.
Yeah, and I find that interesting, and here's why I bring that up, because I think that we're in the midst of this tremendous cultural shift in our world, right? Where we see technology changing, we see social structures changing, we see medicine changing, we see education in flux. Everything seems to be shifting and changing, and there are people who will say to themselves, where does all of this change actually going to stop? What if, as humanity, we end up, off in things that we don't think are a good idea? Well, I was thinking about that this week because I was in these conversations with some folks up in Canada about this, and it dawned on me that the United States, back when I was a kid, thought getting to the moon was the biggest deal. Astronauts were big things on television. I Dream of Jeannie. I drank Tang. We watched the Jetsons. It was all very space age. Then it just stopped. And what I think happened is we as a nation just said, nah, we don't want to go to the moon. Not that interesting. Like, do you ever think, Ed, does anybody look up at the moon and say to themselves, like, I really need to get there? We made this big rush to get to the moon, and then everybody just said, nah, not so interested anymore. Isn't that strange? Isn't it strange how for one generation, a real passion, I mean, the president sort of calling everyone into figuring this out in this big space age race, and everybody, and then we just said, nah, I'm not going anymore.
I think part of it is that we accomplished the moon.
Yep.
But the next, I guess, milestone would be getting to Mars, and that is just so unattainable right now. It's kind of hard to get motivated.
Oh, I hear you, because you don't even know what's there, and you can't see Mars, and it just seems so bizarre. But isn't it odd that we don't talk about going to the moon or living on the moon or anything like you would have imagined 40 years ago, right? 40 years ago, the thought would have been, this is going to be a country in which moon and Earth life are going to be connected. And then we just said, nope, we're not interested. So I think what that shows is that there's a bit of a governor. There's a bit of a protection within our society, within our cultures, that say when something actually isn't interesting, we don't see any way it makes life better, we self-regulate. We just become uninterested in those things. I think that's a rather fascinating notion of all this cultural development. As fast as things have changed, pretty much people have said, if it doesn't benefit us, if it's not of some good, if it's not of some usefulness, then we're not doing it. So the world isn't running out of control. The world isn't just developing technologically and sociologically and anthropologically into this no one knows where the end game. The world is just changing so rapidly and so fast. Now, there are pretty cool things happening, right? The fact that, people can communicate around the world, that people can travel, that we can create new elements at the fundamental nano level, that we can be working at the subatomic level. Fantastic. But then there's other things that if we say it doesn't benefit us, just sort of as a whole, people grow disinterested. Now, I think that's actually a shame, because I think that space exploration would have been so cool. Like, if there was actually, like transportation like there was, because the space shuttle was supposed to be like an airplane, but you could, fly up into the upper orbits, maybe get up to the moon and all that. We just decided in this country we're not doing it at all. Isn't it kind of, and it made me ask the question that sometimes we have to wonder, when are we? Not just where are we, but when are we? because there's people for whom space exploration, that's totally bizarre. They would never, ever be interested in that. But they will take on other kinds of technologies. And I think this actually impacts religion quite a bit, because I think religion doesn't know very often how to deal with these new technologies. And we tend to get freaked out about them, tend to get all wiggy about the ability. You know, there were people who said that man never landed on the moon because the book of Psalms says in the Bible that the moon is the footstool of the earth. So it's not made like that. There's no way you could go there and land on the moon. They think the whole thing was a made-up sham simply because the Bible says you can't go there.
What do they mean by a footstool?
Well, that it's that it's connected to the earth in this particular way that a human being could never go there. Just bizarre. I mean, it's so odd, right, that you would take poetry from 3,000 years ago that would sort of talk about this connectedness between earth and moon and heaven, and they would restructure it in a way that would say, well, there's no way a human being could ever actually land on the moon. So I think that religion plays this really powerful force in our culture, but so does advancement in technology, so does advancement in culture, and we often don't know how the two are supposed to intertwine, how the two are supposed to meet. So, Doug Pagitt Radio, religious radio, that's not quite right. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about cultural development. We're going to talk about development of fundamentalism in our world, all here in the next 2 hours on Doug Pagitt Radio, broadcasting live out of the Twin Cities on AM 950 and the voice of Minnesota and DougPagittRadio.com.